All right, everybody. Welcome back to FORTIUS podcast. Titans of Throws Legends. Obviously, we have Lance Deal, hammer thrower slash old school discus thrower.
Hey, y'all.
Yeah, American record holder. You know the whole deal. Lance, how's it going? Thank you for being on, man.
Don't forget wannabe shot putter.
Wannabe shot putter.
Way in the back. I'm doing great, kid boy. How are you?
I'm doing good. What was the PR in the shot put?
PR was 60 foot 2.5 with a 16 pound. As a sophomore in college.
That's pretty good. What'd you throw jab?
I can't throw the jab to save my life.
Yeah, okay, I was in that same.
I think 140 is my PR, and it felt like the whole left side of my body was going to fall off.
And then never again. Things are going okay, and actually currently I'm kind of in the middle of putting this throws consortium, fancy word for conference, putting that together. So that's been a lot of fun, if not super busy. So what are you doing now? Putting some cages?
Oh yeah. Trying to work the way through this COVID stuff. I had to quit massaging starting right about spring break when everybody else got shut down. But luckily I've got a few cages on order that I've been working on pretty steadily. And then, just like everybody, projects around the house.
Yeah,
trying to stay healthy. We're really, really fortunate to be in Oregon, especially Lane County. The folks here, for the most part, have been really good at being smart about this and shutting down and wearing masks we've got a really low rate, both of cases and deaths, and so it's a good place to be right now.
Yeah, that's really good. Are you in the same spot, the same house, like for however many years, like when you were coaching at Oregon, or have you guys?
Yeah, we took a break when our daughter was going to high school. We moved to a different school district, so she could finish at a sort of more challenging high school.
Got it.
And we were going to stay there for a year and a half, and we got stuck for about 7. But we just rented this place out. I think you've been here. The one we've got we got 3/4 of an acre and in a nice old house, and so it's we rented it out, and now we're back.
Is there a ring out back?
There's not enough room. Maybe for a shot ring for me. I guess wait now because I can't throw that anymore either. But
just in case you want to feel the old back.
Don't really want to do that.
Yeah, man. So this podcast, I'm kind of interested in people's stories and mindsets and kind of just what it is about them that makes them really high performance, but not necessarily like high performance, but a lot to do with kind of how do you get that out of yourself, and like
that's a good question.
Yeah. So it's a lot, like, I mean, it is kind of sports psychology, but like I'm not there as much as, I mean, I don't know how many classes I took with my major, but like I'm not a sports psychologist, right? I'll never say that about myself, but like it's a major interest of mine. So as such, I kind of started this podcast to speak to people like yourself and see what's up and kind of share these stories.
Well, it's definitely an important part of the whole training. My smart aleck response is, the way to get good is connect yourself with this crazy Scotsman and stay there for 18 years.
Yeah.
Which is to fill in for those of you that don't know. When I came to Eugene in '85 after college, I came because of a man named Stuart Togher, and he is, in my opinion, the best technical hammer coach in the world. bar none. And, we just, and that, there's a lot of different approaches to the end result. There's a lot of, there's a lot of roads to Rome. The one that I chose was more of a technical model. And we, of course we got strong, but, not nearly as strong as, some of those Germans and Hungarians and some of the Americans. But we worked a lot on the real finer points of movement. And during that time, what that does, that becomes a pretty big mental challenge. And some of this stuff I think of as, and I've never really thought of that. But because of our approach and because of, feedback almost every throw, it gets really, it's really challenging mentally to stay in that. And rarely could we just let it go. And it was always just keeping the reins on, just even sometimes slightly, but most of the time pretty.
Let it go, as in like getting after a throw, kind of match.
Yeah, just going bonkers. Bah!
Yeah.
About the only time that we could do that was, and sometimes in training when we were throwing puds and stuff. And of course, you can't really do that in a weight room, or at least I couldn't, because I'd blow myself up. Something would fall off my body. So I did have to develop a pretty good, strong mental approach. And along with, the higher you go up in the competition, well, let me start again. So people ask me what it's like to throw in the Olympics. And I said, well, what was it like did you go to state? What was the first time you went to the state championship in your high school? It's the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact mental state. It's the exact biochemical state. Anytime you get challenged and stressed, the same thing happens. And so, but kind of maybe you could say that the stakes are different. The stakes get higher. I don't think that's really true. I think that we lay on those things.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
On top of whatever the stressor is. And so, but it becomes more and more obvious, that, oh, okay. If you foul out of your state championship, it's devastating. In fact, it was probably the most devastating meet of my life is when I fouled out of my state championship in my senior year in the discus, leading the state by 30 feet and couldn't get a fair throw.
I got one of those in junior college, where same situation, actually I think I was leading the nation at that for junior colleges, and Coach Mack, and it wasn't pretty. Yeah. Anyway.
But you get this feeling that, okay, you can go home and the only people that knew about it were the 5 people standing out in the wind at Cheyenne Central High School in Wyoming, that saw it, and everybody's going to forget about it. But it's a little different when you're, you're going into Atlanta with, there's going to be 60,000 people there that kind of want you to do well.
Yeah.
So you develop your strategies, and you start getting a little, just like everything, for first time you go out and throw in high school, I just want to chuck this thing around. It's kind of fun. I can finish throwing the discus and then go watch the girls. And as you develop kind of I don't even want to say kind of a higher level. It's just a more specific level. You got to get better at everything. You got to learn how to turn your foot in the middle if you're a shot putter. You got to, be able to stay long out of in the middle of the ring in the discus, and then more and more and more,
right.
More and more and more specific. And so mentally you have to get more and more and more specific. And I was really fortunate to have a great mentor and psychologist. His name is Scott Pengelly, and
He's still around?
he's still around. And he helped me a lot with some of that stuff. And the thing that I liked about him, because I was pretty resistant, not because of any, stigma or whatever. I figured I was pretty smart, and I figured I had a pretty good, worldview about this whole thing. And
So
the
was
stuff
there
that
a moment that was there a moment where you're like, yeah, okay, let me hear Scott. You know what I mean? Like, did something happen where
yes,
kind of, okay.
yes, something very specific.
Yeah.
And I'll share that with you. So my wife, Nancy, worked at a multidisciplinary pain clinic. And so she's a PT, she's a physical therapist. And this was a place where there was doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners and exercise therapists and physical therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists. And so Scott was working at this clinic. It was a chronic pain. People that were dead end, 5 surgeries and narcotic painkillers, and just they're going down. And so they'd bring him in, and it was a I don't know how long the program lasted, but it was a resident program, and they got everything. They learned how to move, they learned how to react to their pain, all this stuff. So Scott was working on this, and that's what a lot of his work is now, is chronic pain. But Nancy kept saying, well, why don't you go see Scott? Why don't you go see Scott? I don't need to go see Scott, blah, blah, blah. So then Tokyo happened, Tokyo 91, and World Championships. And I was ready. I was so ready. And I had this plan, and I was going to throw, 76 meters the first throw. And then I was going to throw 78 meters. And then, then I was just going to let it loose and see what happened. First throw hit the cage, and it just blew up.
Yeah.
Everything my brain just exploded, and I don't know what I threw, but it was horrible. And so I came back home and said, hey, do you have Scott's number? And so my fear was that the first thing, and I really apologize to all the really, really good sports psychologists out there. But my idea was they were just going to say, now picture yourself on the award stand.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
No, that's not my deal. I know that I'm going to be on the award stand, right? How am I going to get there? That's what I want to know, right? I don't have any doubt in my abilities at all, right? I don't do negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff. I see the positives in everything, but now how to apply that personality to more of a structured thing. It's like, yeah, here's a guy that's 6'4", 290, can snatch 400 pounds and can run a 4.5 40. Great. Put a hammer in his hand. What is he going to do? You have to teach him the finer points of the hammer throw.
Yeah.
And so at least enough to get it out of the cage, because there's some people out there, it's just really all you got to do is get it out of the cage, and it's going to go 500 miles. So how do you do that? And what happens when you hit the cage on your first throw? And what happens when you foot foul on your second throw, and there's 60,000 people in the stands, and there's 10 million people watching, and it's the Olympics, and it's your last chance? What are you going to do?
I have that exact.
So that 5 year, you're going to beat up trash cans, and you're going to go into the bathroom and collect your thoughts, and you're going to keep saying it only takes one throw. That's what you do. That's the simple story of, my story of the Olympic final in 96. So it was a 5-year path to get there. And there was more, there was more after that. We went through not quite as intensely as that from 96 to 2000. But that was sort of the it wasn't agreed. We didn't know that this was what was going to happen. It's basically, you look back on it and goes, oh yeah, that's what we did, you know?
Yeah.
That was the path that we were both on, and maybe we didn't know it at the time. Maybe we didn't know the final goal. We were just on this path to get to this certain spot, to go in a certain direction even.
So there was room for some flexibility in there, it sounds like, where he didn't come to you with a template that was like, this is what we're going to do over the next 8 years. And
well, I think that yeah, exactly. And again, I've never thought of this before because I haven't thought of it in that way. But I think that the sports psychology part is even more, has to be even more tailored to the athlete. You know, hear all the great coaches saying you don't coach an event, you coach an athlete. Right, you have to adjust your approach to the individual athlete, and I think it's even more true with a psychologist.
Yeah,
or with the psychology of it, because you've got, you know, first of all, you've got the stigma. For some reason, and it's okay. People think that, you know, sports psychology, there's not as much stigma, and that's true. But why are you going to a sports psychologist? As an athlete, you're just not an athlete when you step into the ring. Right. You're an athlete going to practice. You're an athlete during practice. You're an athlete when you wake up in the morning. You're an athlete when you go to sleep at night. You're an athlete when you're sleeping, right? You're an athlete when you go on vacation. You're an athlete, you know, in the middle of the dark winter months where you're just grinding it out, right? So why would you think that psychology only applies to the athletics? No, you're this person, you're this whole person, and the way you're dealing with certain things in athletics is the exact same way. It's just like I said about the stressors earlier. Stressor's a stressor. It doesn't matter whether it's the state high school championship, the Olympic Games, or somebody yelling at you at an intersection. You're going to do what you're going to do in every single stress situation. You're mentally going to react in the same way. And so, so some of the stuff gets really personal. And if they're good, it gets really personal.
Yeah. And I really agree with that too. And that's something that you kind of see. I'm sure you see it too. Generally speaking, I feel like that's one of the pain points, at least that I see looking at coaches around, right? There's a lot of, I would say that there's a lot of coaching essentially from their point of view. And, you know, the moment that it kind of gets a little bit hard, or that you have to tailor something again to a specific athlete, it's the message is kind of lost. And as I kind of say that, I guess it's not really, not to pick on coaches. Honestly, that's just kind of people, I think. You know what I mean? But that's probably what makes sports so special, because it is kind of a microcosm, but honestly, maybe even a stronger look at, you know, us as a society or as a whole, or communication and how we interact with people, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, the human condition.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely. Everybody has their construct of what the world looks like, and to move out of that construct sometimes is really difficult. You know, and we see it. You know, we see it all over now. You know, with the situation this nation's in. Everybody, you know, everybody has their own opinions and their own construct of what the world looks like, and without a really clear, I don't want to say universal, but common set of parameters, of givens, you know, you're lost. And so we were really fortunate in here in Eugene with Stuart, is he had a very, very clear idea, not of the throw, but of the basics. Okay, the very basic 2 or 3 things that you got to do to throw the thing far. And that's all we worked on. And everybody looked different. And, some of my training partners, accused us of they were just test subjects for Lance. So Stuart would try stuff out on them just to see if it worked, and then I'd try. But we were all trying it at the same time.
Yeah.
And maybe the picture that it's kind of hard to say, the picture that the world saw, or even that we saw as a group, was tailored to my particular idiosyncrasies.
Right.
That might be true, but it was always the basics. It was always, and we don't want to talk about technique here, but
not that I don't want to. I'm fine diving in there. Well, let's start with that. So, 2 or 3 basics. Like, what were Stuart's 2 or 3 basics?
Well, basically, if it hurts you, don't do it. We were really about injury prevention.
Mm-hmm.
And the nature of the beast. It's a little bit like saying that, I don't know, you want to skydive, but you don't want to get in a plane. But and then just finding the easiest way. I guess the best way to say it is finding the easiest, most efficient way to throw far. And if it's Stuart always used to use this example, just of the idea of just getting stronger. And I can't remember the guy's name. This is where I failed as a student. I listened to the stories and I didn't hold on to the details. But he would talk about this German that threw, I don't know, 73 meters. It was back in the day.
Yeah.
So I threw 73 meters and he was squatting, 400. And so he bumped his squat up to 500 and he threw 72.50. So does that really help? What actually makes the ball go far? And that's what, and so, we'd look at other throwers, and of course, Stuart worked with other throwers, and we'd say, well, this is what he does. Now, why does he do that? And the other thing was always, all the videos of all the, at the time it was the Russians, Sadiq and Litvinov and Tam and Nikulin and it wasn't Ostapkovich yet. And all we saw was videos of competitions. And so Stuart would always say, look at what they're trying to do. Don't look at what they're doing. Look at what they're trying to do. And then we got a video of, I think Hal took it. I think it was a secret video.
Yeah, someone behind the bushes with.
Yeah. Or out of the bathroom window or something.
Oh, yeah.
And you could see him doing all the same mistakes that we were making.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Exactly. They were doing the same drills. They were making the same mistakes. It's like, look at, these guys are not anything more special than you are.
Yeah.
We can do this. And so at that point, if anybody had any doubt, and I never did. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not smart enough to think that far down the road. It was just like, okay, here's the path, how do we keep from getting, bumped into by the trees? So, yeah, I forget where we were going with that. I mentioned
just basics. I think that might have been the third one. So, if it hurts, don't do it. And then,
well, I mean, no, there were real specific. There were specific things that we did.
Yeah.
You don't go out over your front leg. My right leg, everybody else is like, you know, you got to turn the center rotation is closer to your backside than it is your front side.
Yeah. Okay.
That sort of stuff. You have to do it. You have to use the ball. You have to feel the pendulum. You have to feel a free ball. You don't go up and down with the ball. You don't even try to go up and down. You try to stay level. You know, some of the stuff I talked about yesterday or the other day on some other, it's kind of funny.
You're on a circuit right now.
I'm on a circuit. Yeah. With all the coaches, with all the college coaches in shutdown, I'm the hero again. But, so those are kind of the you know, and I, as a coach for 8 years, or 7 or however many, and trying to make it more simplistic, or at least something that I could hold all of that stuff in the same bucket. I just, you know, there's two things: there's posture and timing, and there's really a very specific. It's hard to define, but a very specific, you know, model, you know, sort of a system-wide model of what that is. Now, people do it differently.
Yes.
You know, Livenoff set it on his right hip and used the ball back there. You know, I always worked in between my feet and tried to throw the ball to 180. There's other people that you know, the big force is at 90. So as long as you're doing those things, and of course I have, you know, I'm biased. I think that my way is the most efficient, just because I know it the best. Yeah. And, you know, I know a lot of people don't believe my strength levels when I was throwing far, but I know how strong I was, and I wasn't very strong.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, literally, I couldn't clean what these guys were snatching, and I was beating them. So there's something about that. There's something about what we did that has to be pretty right. Because the other thing is I'm not, you know, I'm not the greatest athlete in the world. You know, I can't dance. I can't look at somebody and mimic the thing. Yeah, you got to tell me how to do it. You know, I've got a couple of physical attributes that are really good. I'm really long out in front of me. I can stretch out far. I had a super long radius just because of the anatomy of my shoulders.
How many inches over your height?
What's that?
How many inches is your wingspan?
Well, this way, it's not that much, right? Oh, yeah. This way, I'm maybe an inch or two over my height. But, you know, my dad could scratch his knees without bending over. We got these damn slopey shoulders. And something about that, and, you know, they're not wide, they're skinny, you know, so I could get out here in front of me. I could reach out pretty far, and you know, I learned the 3-fingered grip, 3 and 3, change the anatomy of the shoulder a little bit, or change either the anatomy or the neuromuscular firings, that I got more length that way. And so, you know, stupidly short legs and the super long back. I don't know if that helped or not, but that's what I got. Interestingly enough, probably one of the things that was my greatest attribute was I've got a birth defect and I don't have an inner ear on one side.
Interesting.
So I don't get dizzy.
Huh. So
it was, I could do 2-ball drills all day long, and I wouldn't get dizzy. So I really do honestly think that helped.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I don't know. Aside from that, it's really just, if we're talking about my attributes, which I know I'm trying not to just talk about me. I was just really determined.
Yeah.
You know, and not as I think back on it, and I didn't notice it, I didn't recognize it at the time. I mentioned to Stuart one time, we were sitting at breakfast, and I said, yeah, you know, I've just been really, really lucky. And he got pissed off. It's like, you're not lucky, laddie. You work for everything you got. And, you know, I started thinking about it like that. And yeah, I mean, I was there every day, you
Yeah.
know, and just show up. My sports psychologist, Scott, told me a story once about Nolan Ryan after his, was it his third no-hitter? Something that nobody's ever done. You know, I don't know how many, but it was when he set the record.
Yeah.
And he came out, and he just about didn't show up at the park because he had I don't know, 102 fever. And he showed up and he was scheduled to start and just kept pitching. And they asked him later, you know, why, why did you show up? You know, how is this, you know, how did you do this? And he just goes, well, you know, sometimes you just got to get up and go to work. And so I was really fortunate. I'm not that kind of guy naturally. And I always say this, you know, I'm not this super dedicated, motivated, you know, athlete guy. What I'm really good at is putting myself in a situation where I'm forced to perform.
Yeah.
And so I did that in college in a certain way. My college coach, Mike Carignan, was just a super good fit for the kind of person that I am. And we became, you know, great friends while there. It wasn't, at the end, it really wasn't a coach-athlete relationship. Other than I really respected him as a coach. And he really, really respected me as an athlete. But he was the kind of guy that motivated you to go into that place, you know.
Any idea like how he did that?
For me, it was mostly by example. He taught me about intensity. I mean, this was a guy that, you know, I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story on him, but it was right at the start of Title IX, and Title IX's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. I've got a 26-year-old daughter that's benefited from that. And it's just right. I just love it. I'm just, the hardest part of this whole COVID thing is that the women's basketball didn't get to finish. So that's not true. There's a lot of very many worse things, but please don't
I have to put out a PSA before this thing.
Yeah, don't. That was the first thing. Let's say that. So anyway, so we got this brand new locker room. It wasn't because of Title IX, but it was a brand new locker room. Maybe you should just cut that whole Title IX thing out. So anyway, are you going to edit this?
No. I can't if you want me to.
Okay. Anyway, I just don't want to have, you know. Anyway, people that don't know me. Anyway,
it's all love. I think they understand.
We got these brand new lockers, and we had 60 people on the men's team and 30 people on the women's team, but we had to have equal lockers, and we couldn't get more athletes, and it was very frustrating. Mike was really frustrated. And these lockers, I don't have to set this up so much. I don't know what I'm doing, but anyway, they're the expanded steel ones, you know, the little grate with a metal grate.
Yeah.
And he got pissed off, and he just started screaming, and he just full speed, full force punched one of these lockers with the expanded steel like 5 times, just shredded his hand. And he'd do that in the weight room. You know, he'd get under a bench press, and we were supposed to do 8, right? And he would do the first one, second one, third one, 8th one, he's still going. It's like, holy crap, this guy does not quit. So I had that in me because I had a big brother. And so, you know, I was always trying to compete with my big brother. And so I knew that feeling of that frustration and that determination, but I didn't really know what it looked like. And so Mike showed me what it looked like. And that was really cool.
Yeah.
And so, and I was just so, and then here we go. See, I say why I wasn't motivated, but I just had to throw. I would I would go up into the mezzanine of the field house and do 75 dry glides in the shop because I had to learn how to turn that foot in the middle. I couldn't do it when Mike told me Mike told me I needed to do it. I couldn't do it 75 all by myself without stopping. Stuff like that.
Like you weren't able to get it right or how he wanted it to be, or
yeah, it was a new concept to me that because I was a glider. So as you drive out of the back, I'm left-handed. So you drive off the left foot, you pull that left foot underneath you and turn your foot. We did the American style. We weren't doing the East German style because I was 6'2". And so couldn't do it. So I just kept doing it until I could. He didn't tell me to do that. He didn't invite me to do it. In fact, I'd call him up, hey, can we go throw? And, it was 7 o'clock at night and he'd just gotten out. He was a volunteer. He worked 12 hours a day, working at all sorts of odd jobs, keep himself alive. So he was burnt. And I came home it was an 8-hour drive to Casper from Bozeman, or vice versa to Bozeman from Casper. And so I came back after I don't know why I went home. But I came back after an 8-hour drive and called him and said, hey, can we go throw? This is 7 or 8 at night. And he drug himself out of whatever he was doing and came over and opened the field house and we threw. Happened to be the first time that I threw 60 feet. But, okay. But that was the kind of guy he was. He inspired the sort of intensity and dedication. And he did it for years and years and years. He's the best college coach in the country. He just doesn't recruit out of Montana.
Yeah.
I was before an athlete from Casper, Wyoming.
Yeah.
So, and then Stuart, it's a different story. Stuart was in Kibwe, Stuart. And so, a lot of people hopefully that are listening to this have had a chance to be around him.
Yeah.
Especially later, because early it was really hard to be around him. He was more authoritarian. He was more, it was tougher. He was mentally tougher, physically tougher.
I was just going to ask you about how the two of you communicated. So this is good.
Oh, well, I remember doing an interview once and in the newspaper and they asked that. And I said, basically the way we communicate is he tells me to do something and I do it as closely as I can with my capability of physical capability and capability of understanding it as closely as he asked me to do it. And so, and I'll relay another story to kind of explain that in a way. So after I don't know when it was, mid-90s, I was good, right? And he asked me to do something, or he told me to do something. And I knew it was wrong. Absolutely knew it was wrong. This is in the fall. And so I didn't do it. And I kept trying to find ways to appease him. Yeah, okay, well, I know what he's trying to get at. And so I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to skip that step of doing that one thing. And I don't remember what the thing was, hold your pinky up. I don't know what it was. But I absolutely knew it was wrong. So.
What was the end result though?
Well, I'm getting to, sorry.
Okay.
Getting to, so, so this went on for months. And so finally he wore me down. And it's like one day I said, all right, I'll do it. And so I did it and it didn't work. And he saw that it didn't work. And we never talked about it again. We never did anything. He was off of it, completely off of it after 6 months of that's all we did. So I wasted 6 months of training by being stubborn. And you couldn't have said, Stuart, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
that's not the way that he worked. And so, yeah, at the same time, he knew enough to back it up. It's like we showed up one day and we didn't want to train. And it's like, the Russians are doing it right now and they're doing it in the snow. So if you want to catch them, shut up. Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that. It's just, the Russians are doing it, so we're doing it.
F-bombs, maybe.
What's that?
A couple F-bombs, maybe.
Maybe.
So
Yeah, it was a different situation. Much more, the same amount of in my world, in my head, in my heart, the same amount of accountability to the program, but just with I don't know, it was just more real.
So do you think so was he trying to essentially problem solve?
Oh yeah, he never stopped thinking.
Yeah.
He would come in some days and his eyes he'd have luggage bags under his eyes and he'd be all pissed off. It's like, I stayed up all night thinking about this. Blah.
Yeah.
And he was so good at seeing the movement. I mean, literally, because even then I was building stuff, and I had this big 9-inch grinder, big heavy Bosch grinder. And I remember doing some work in the shop one day after practice, and I came in the next day, first throw. You've been working in your shop again, haven't you, laddie? So apparently I got really right shoulder dominant when I did that, because all tools are right-handed, right?
Yeah, right.
So, and he could see that right away. He was a genius at seeing that stuff. And so you couldn't get away with a lot. You couldn't pretend to do it. You couldn't pretend to do it right. You had to do it right.
What's you might have a few of these. What's a moment where, or actually, no, I'll just ask. So did it ever kind of blow up or come to a head?
One time.
Yeah. Cause yeah.
I can't remember when it was. It was in the mid 90s. And I said it out loud and I did a bad throw. I was trying to do, it might've been in the same set of 6 months as before. And I just was so frustrated and I threw and it was horrible and I fell out of the ring, fell off the slab really. And I go, that's just not, I didn't say it to him. I was trying to not say it to him. I said, that's just not right. And he knew what I was saying and I knew what I was saying and everybody else knew what I was saying. And he just looked at me completely relaxed face. He goes, well, everybody else is doing it. Everybody else here is doing it. It's like, oh, you dirty rotten. So, but that's really the only time.
Yeah. So that's cool. Cause you hear stories, through Judd or whoever else. Right. And it seemed, I always found it interesting because it sounded like as, not volatile, but as kind of emotions and things on his sleeve as Stuart was, and then to have you as one of his athletes, and it just seemed to work well. Where I think if you had two people that are equally kind of, again, emotions on your sleeve / hot-headed, didn't really seem to work. And saying that, that did actually happen. So Judd brought Stuart out one fall. This is either my first or second fall in Ashland. And so we had all these training sessions and there were a couple blow-ups and then a couple guys didn't train with him for the rest of the time. Meanwhile, I'm just like, seriously, I mean, that's okay. And that's more time for the rest of us, I guess. But yeah.
It took a psychologist for me. my natural tendencies and then to be able to fine tune that stuff a little bit, what's in my head. And I had help. I'd call my buddy Brian Masterson, who was here, um, Stuart would go down when he was coaching at Burke for 84. Brian was going to Stanford. And so Brian actually, I think, probably knows somehow, some way, he knows Stuart better than anybody. Stuart would share stuff with Brian that he didn't ever share with me.
Oh yeah.
And so one time I called him, and we had this other little tiff, and said, Brian, what's he doing? He goes, Lance, he just made the finals of the Olympics. He's just checking your ego. He doesn't want you to get too big-headed. Because that was the thing, that was a big thing about Stuart.
Yeah.
Is not to keep you under his thumb, but you had to stay humble. You had to stay hungry. And you had to realize, he always talked about, not being a faker, and one of the stories that he always told about humility and about trueness to who you are. It's the first time he met Hal Connolly. And Hal Connolly he was picking him up at the airport, and they'd never met. And, so he didn't know who Stuart was. Stuart didn't know what Connolly looked like in real life. Years later, this was in the 80s. And so Stuart's walking into the airport waiting room, and he sees this guy with a withered hand holding a hammer handle. And so for a guy like Hal to be able to, be proud of that and be able to fly that out in front of a complete stranger, that really impressed Stuart.
Yeah.
And so, so that was part of the deal. You really had to be, you could never become more important than the process.
I think, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of looking back on not only my experiences with him in the early years, going back to that Ashland experience, I think that was my first time meeting, I'm pretty sure. And on one of my throws, I think I was in the ring for 22 or 27 minutes, like for one attempt. So like, what that's like, right? And,
Yeah.
and this is very, very, say again?
I don't twitch anymore at night thinking about it.
Yeah, seriously. So this is super early in my hammer throwing career. So just career in general. And I don't think I had thrown 70 meters yet either. But anyway, and so I'm in the ring, and it's just raw. Like it's how I describe myself, right? I used to be like an athlete trying to throw a hammer. It pretty much looks like most other good athletes who pick up a hammer. I'm like, I'm really strong and I'm really fast. I'm gonna freaking throw this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm in there, and at some point he was like, no, he wasn't frustrated. It was more like, okay. And he pauses and he's like, look, son, I'm not even going to try to do the accent. He's like, look, son, can I tell you something without you getting mad at me? I was like, yeah. And he said, when you were born, when the doctors pulled you out of your mother, they pulled you out by your ass. And it's like, because I did this thing, I'll have to do like a throwback Thursday or something, pull up a video from like Olympic trials. I was still doing it in 04, and like, and my ass is, and it's like, yeah, you can't throw that way. And he essentially had enough, like saying, hey, like, let's kind of get your body and your posture up this way. And it just wasn't clicking for me at the time. And he dropped that nugget on me, and I just laughed because, like, what do you do? And I didn't take it personally. It was like, yeah, no, man, we're good. Years later, it was a good time. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's what he would do. He would try to find what he was doing was he was voicing his frustration in his way, which we don't do as Americans.
Yeah.
And he was trying to and so all of this other stuff, and believe me, I've got horror stories Um, and everybody else has seen this stuff like you did, and the guys that left that couldn't handle it. At the end of all of that, so what I would do early on, especially if I had a really bad day and I was feeling kind of like, dirty, rotten critter, I would go to the college and watch him coach the college kids. He's much nicer to the college kids.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this guy isn't the devil. He is not Mephistopheles. He's actually human. It's good. And so then you learn that, and in watching it, you learn that the person, the people that he thinks can throw the farthest, he picks on the most. Early on, we didn't have, there wasn't that delineation. We were all 68-meter throwers. There was 3 of us, me and Greg Gassner and Dave Chesborough. Dave was 64 guy. But anyway, it seemed as if this was the very first year of the Hammer School in Eugene. It seemed as if that every Monday he would pick the person to pick on, and it was pretty obvious, and he would just brutalize them. And so then afterwards, we'd get done, and we were training at the university. So we'd walk down the street to the Dairy Queen, and whoever got picked on got a free Blizzard. So, but it's very definitely the thing, and it really. But at the end of the day, he just wants you to throw far. He just wants everybody to throw far.
He's a fan, yeah.
And he wouldn't not coach anybody. Freaking coached Balazs Kiss in '96. Look what happened. Dirty Ryan. Pac-10s. Hey, Balazs, when you came out of your mom, you came out from the, whatever he said to you,
Yeah.
He said something to Balazs, and I don't know if Balazs took it. I don't know if it helped him or not, but that was the story. And
This is the collegiate record?
Yeah.
Pac-10s? Wow.
This was a Pac-10s, and then of course it was, it fed in. So yeah, he just wanted to figure this thing out. He was just driven. So all of this goes back to, this is why I was successful, because the only thing that I did was I bought into the system.
Right.
And then the rest of it's just, okay, here we go.
I think that's pretty cool, because I never had a super in-depth conversation with Stuart about my time with him, or my time with all of you guys as mentors, or Judd specifically, and then also being with Dr. Bondarchuk. But I mean, having all of those experiences, and I remember trying to tell him essentially my first time back at a US Champs after being up there, and I was like, you guys are a lot more similar than I think you realize. It's like, you know what I mean? There's a completely different language, and there's some different terms and key words, but I gotta say, you're kind of doing the same stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the basics.
Yeah. And exactly, there's the basics, and then the idea of efficiency, and kind of just seeing, I guess, the movement as a whole. Stuart was the only other one that I had heard really speak about the event that way. You know what I mean? And there's a whole slew of beneath that are very specific and particular, and this needs to be this, and this needs to be that. And you have these guys who've literally coached the all-time greats, and it's like, no, man, you just, reason being, because everyone's different.
Right.
And there has to be a space to allow for, I guess, what's natural to come out. Otherwise, you stunt it.
Yeah. And yeah, so you can move that stuff around. My psyche lends itself more to the particularness of the way Stuart approached it, and your psyche lends you more to the particular, the way that Bondarchuk approaches it. The guy that I wish, and I had a chance to do it, and I'm really mad about it, when I was, in the heat of it, we had a chance to get Nikulin and
Yeah.
Bakarinov, the Fortune coach, the Russian Fortune coach. We had a chance to get them over here, and I didn't do it.
Oh, this wasn't like Goodwill Games related or anything? This was...
No, this was come out, train for a couple of weeks, share stuff.
Yeah.
And, at the time it's like, screw you, you're not getting what I got. But Bakarinov was, he was another student of the event. And I got to talk to him a little tiny bit. But he came in Cuba, when the World Cup in Cuba, we were training, and this was before video cameras, and or at least he didn't have one. He just stood behind the ring and just stared at me the whole time. just absorbing. And I think that probably, if you look at what Nikulin was trying to do, Litvinov was a little different because he was just so aggressive.
Yeah.
But Nikulin would get literally out of 20 practice throws, he would get 2 throws out of the cage. They're just all over because he was about the dynamics of the throw. And so I would have liked to have been around and talked to him a little bit about that. But it's what it is. You walk the path that you're on.
Sure. He's someone that I'd like to get on the podcast. I don't think I've ever, no, I met him once at a Worlds, but like in passing, right? Like so Dr. B like loves to coach and everything, and we'll sit there behind the ring and at a meeting coach, until the sun comes up. Yeah. But at majors, at least since he's been out and away from all the guys that he used to coach and everything, so like at majors when he would go, to Worlds or the Olympics, like he'd just ham it up. he'd go off with them after training was done, and he'd be like, "Okay, all right, coach, I'll see you tomorrow." I guess like my man's gonna go have fun. So like it was one of those moments where it was like, "Oh hey, you're Nikulin, and this is cool," and then he'd be gone.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy.
What was it like being like an American competing over there, first of all, and then also starting to beat everyone, and then you were ranked, you were number 1 for a period, a year, 2 years?
Just in 96.
Just 96, yeah. Because I know that's something, because before you, it had been a while before there was anyone ranked in the world.
Yeah, Tom Gage was the last one to make the final, and that was in 72. And he got 8th or 9th.
72, 96, and then 2012.
Yeah, wow. So what was it like? It was kind of lonely, truthfully. Yeah. I kind of came in right. So Judd and Ken, in the early, I guess, when I first started getting around, they got into a lot of meets over in Europe. And then by the time I got there and got in, I was the only hammer thrower. And so, I hung out with the vaulters a lot. They're pretty cool. But not a lot of American throwers around, because the Grand Prix was discus and javelin one year and then shot and hammer the other year.
Yeah.
And, the shot putters were pretty popular. And so they were traveling a lot more. Anyway, for whatever reason. And then at the meets, like 3 Hungarians they'd drag hammers for each other. And so it was always this jockeying of, okay, how are you going to get a hammer and get in line? Because the officials, they didn't care. They in order, whatever. But you had to get enough throws in to warm up. And so that kind of pissed me off sometimes. but mostly, you know, I did it with the exception of 96, 92, section 92. I would go over for 2 weeks and then come back. I'd have 3 meets. So I'd fly in, have a meet the next day, then have a meet the next weekend, and then have a meet the following weekend, and then I'd fly home. So it was the best way that I could figure out how to do it without, I mean, I was a family man, you know, I missed my daughter, I missed my wife. Especially during this time, my daughter was, you know, really young, and I'd come back and she was a different person, and I didn't really want to miss a lot of that. And the opportunities for Hammer were pretty limited. And so that's what I did. And so I never really got into the traveling around a lot and going from meet to meet to meet, which was fine for me. I remember we had a impromptu meeting in Palo Alto. Yuri Sadiq was in town with his daughter, and he was doing a clinic, and she was competing in a junior competition. And it was the first year that I wasn't the Oregon coach and Robert Weir was. And so Ken Flax showed up to hang out with Robert, and Ed Miller, the longtime assistant coach at Cal, was there. So long story short, we were all sitting in the bar waiting for Robert. And Ed wasn't part of this throws group, but he was enough. He was a throws coach. He was a multis coach, but he coached the throws. And he was, you know, really respected coach. So he wasn't bound by this internal throwers thing of not showing your hand, I guess. So he was just asking all these questions. And of course, most of them were of Yuri, because he's the world record holder.
Yeah.
But what was really interesting, and especially one in particular, the reason that I started to tell this story, was Ed asked Yuri what was his favorite place to go. And Yuri said almost exactly the same thing that I said, that I would say, I don't know. I'd fly in, I'd go to the hotel, I'd wait for the meet, I'd go to the track, I'd throw, I'd come home and wait to leave. And that's what I did a lot.
Yeah.
And so it was but here's a good insight. So the thing that really helped me in being over there, and all the people that are talking about development and how to get the American throwers better, in my I was at an elite clinic, I think it was in 2000, and everybody was talking about, you know, how to get on the award stand, and there was all this psychobabble and mumbo jumbo, and you know, thinking about, well, we need to get athletes more money, and we need to get them over in the meets, and blah 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 blah, and we got to get it out of here. None of that's wrong, but I got fed up with it, and I just go, you know what? You know how you get on the award stand? You throw farther. So anyway, one of the things that I found to help me throw farther in those meets was in doing the series of meets in Europe with all the big boys. You realize that there's another day. You know, you realize that, okay, so this guy had a horrible day today. He's not God, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, I scare or I beat the world record holder in Nice, you know. It's like, okay, if you can beat the world record holder, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Right? Even though he had a bad day, who cares? Right? And so getting that, and it's not just once a year and then you forget about it for 2 years or 4 years or however much it is. Okay, next week, oh, hi guys, how are you? Watch this. Wham! You know? And so to have that exposure to the other guys was really, really valuable, because then it wasn't, you know, whatever the version of, and I'm going to call it starstruck, because early on it is, you know, in Seoul, it was like, that's Yuri Sadiq, that's Yuri Tam, Litvinov, oh my God, you know, and then it was, oh yeah, he's kind of dragging the ball, isn't he?
Yeah, right.
While. Um, so, so that's what it was like. It was really good, really, really rewarding. It's pretty hard for me. Just my whatever, my makeup. I don't like to travel. It's one of the things. One of the reasons I quit. I
Yeah.
was just tired of going over there.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll tell you, and then well, Americans can't go throw in Europe. I'll tell you what, you come over to Boise, and
Yeah.
I'll fly an hour to Boise, and we'll see who competes better, right?
Yeah. It's it's so dumb. I mean, I gotta believe at some point, like they just do it because they know it ruffles our feathers.
Oh,
For them,
sure.
you know what I mean? It's like they know it's hard.
Yeah. But I was lucky enough to be in it long enough to be able to say, oh, an American can throw far, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Watch
Um,
this.
so I mean, I more ask you. I mean, I'm sure other people listening are going to enjoy that answer as well. But I more ask because like I'm kind of assuming that I probably had similar experiences that you did, right? Because between, well, and then Judd, and he was traveling too, but like for someone else to be, 78 plus, 77 plus in Europe
Yeah.
or anywhere else for that matter, South America too. Um, it was a very weird, like, you start getting looks like, what are you about? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Americans can't throw far. It's like, oh yeah, watch, you know what I mean? And that ended up being kind of fun. And then doing it, and then it's like you can kind of see how they change, right? It's like you're initiated or something into a brotherhood.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, right. And it's like it's never really like that. At least it wasn't. I can't think of any situation in my time where anyone was like outwardly just mean or a dick or something, but like there was absolutely, I would say, kind of a change in just energy.
You gain respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I can't really fault that, right? Because when 99% of other people are, let's say, like 9 out of 10 other guys who attempt it and they fail, like why I probably wouldn't assume someone's actually no, I would not assume it. I would be the exact same way. Right, like until you prove it, like yeah, okay, cool.
Or I don't know what they think, but you hear these stories about a magic field where everybody throws far,
Yeah,
or a magic meet where everybody throws far. Oh, that must be why, because they threw it.
yeah, yeah.
They threw an Amarillo.
There's like a
Oh, okay. So you got to knock that off 3 or 4 meters. Um, and so when you see it,
yeah,
it's like, yeah, oh yeah, he can throw far.
yeah.
You know.
I think so. Continuing this kind of idea, what so advice. So currently, right now, USA Hammer men, women obviously too with Deanna winning worlds, but man, this is the best group of men we've ever had, right? I think there was five over 76.
Wow.
Right. And like as of a couple of years ago, 76 something was still 10th all time in the US, like 7680 or something maybe, right? So I haven't even seen top 10 actually in the last couple of years. It's probably at least half written.
Yeah, I don't pay much attention to that.
So but just like, yeah, advice, or is there anything, and honestly for all throwers, I don't want to single out Hammer like that much, but you know what I mean? Thinking about guys who are graduating and kind of emerging into elite status, or guys who are kind of in elite status, but they're trying to, this will be specific to Hammer, trying to crest that between 75 and 78 and 78,
Yeah.
80-meter range, right? Because that's enormous.
Oh, I like the way you broke that up, because that's what it is.
It's enormous.
There's different throws within the throws, and I'm sure that it's the same in the discus and in the shot. I don't know what those boundaries are, because obviously I broke into the 60-foot club and the 60-meter club in the discus, but extrapolating that from what I know about the hammer, there's different levels. Not different. I hate that saying. Let's take it to the next level. I don't like that saying. But it's different throw.
Yeah.
It's different considerations. You can't you can't throw 80 meters throwing a 70-meter throw. It's a different throw. So, and I would even say, as you said, you think you made a break at, 75 or something, 70, whatever, 70, 75, 78, and 80, something like that.
Yeah, personally, that's what I think. 75, 77 is the next, level, and then 80.
Yeah. So it sounds really trite, and I've been trying to think of how to say this, but it's really just pick and commit. I think that there's some people, there's some throwers out there, and I'm not gonna say this about yourself. You're an example of it, and I think that you use it positively. But there are some, because you were always looking for more answers, right? So you would change coaches, and you would change training environments. At least the way that's the way I saw it with you.
Personally, it always fell on natural breaks, like education breaks and faults of my own, right? Like failing out of Georgia, new coach. Pretty much all of them fell on breaks.
I really wish that we could have got you at Oregon, by the way.
I know. Yeah.
You were one of my first recruit wishes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I forget about
this. No, actually, it wasn't really my bad. We had the worst academic advisor ever. Like the dude, seriously, like this isn't just me like laying blame on someone else. Like he got fired. Like there was a couple years there. Like Lucas got affected by it. Joe Lockridge was like it was for some reason it seemed to be all the boys, but like that little crew, we all took classes that we were told were going to transfer. And we would be fine. We all got good grades in those classes. And then when we go to like get recruited, they were like, yeah, no, this doesn't transfer. Like, what are you doing? What? Anyway.
So it worked really well for me all the way through college and afterwards with Stuart. It just make the decision and then don't think about that anymore. Just I've got a friend. I have a hard time working out now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay fit. It's not good. I don't have a coach, right? And so I asked a friend of mine who just does it, every morning he does yoga and goes for a walk. Like, how do you do it? I mean, how do you not skip out? And he goes, well, you just decide to do it. And then the decision's done and you just follow that decision. And so I guess it's the same. My mom was the same way. She quit smoking at 45 or something, 40 years old, cold turkey, two packs a day, cold turkey. My dad was still smoking. And I said, how'd you do it? He goes, well, you just decide to do it. You just decide to be a non-smoker.
Yeah.
And then that part of it's over, right? So for me, deciding to be at Montana State with Mike Kerrigan, deciding to come to Eugene to be with Stuart Togher, that was the decision. And then I got super lucky because they're two great coaches. I didn't pick a crappy coach.
Yeah.
So, but that kind of stability. You have to find stability in what you're doing. You have, it's all global. It's all chaos theory. It's all fractal theory, right? You have to be able to have stability, just like you react to stress the same way in every situation. You have to have stability in every situation. Okay, so you have to have stability in your mind about what your coach is telling you. You have to have stability in your life that you're going to be able to eat something today. You're going to have stability in knowing where you're going to sleep. And it sounds like, the hobo thrower, but also you can look at it like the sleep thing. Well, okay, so it'd be great to, for a young person to have all sorts of options of, girls or boys or whoever, you're going out and so, but then where are you going to sleep that night? You sleep in your room in your apartment, or are you going to sleep at your girlfriend's bed, or are you going to sleep at this other girlfriend's bed? Or no, you need some stability and that's just an example of, it doesn't have to be this idea of, oh, I'm just this poor athlete and I got to make money. Yes, that's true. And you have to look at it in a more global situation of finding stability in every part of your life. And I mean, I don't know, that's what worked for me. I was, and I still contend that Stuart was wrong. I was really, I got touched by the gentle hand of fate many more times than not, and I was the better for it. And I'm really pretty grateful for those things that happened serendipitously that, you know, maybe wouldn't have happened otherwise. That wouldn't have allowed me to do what I did otherwise.
Yeah, right. I get that, because I like to say fortunate, even fortunate, right? And then with the mentors and other people, you being among them, right? There's been
I appreciate it.
Of just kind words and things being said and over the years to kind of essentially keep you on the path that you know to be true, but like sometimes you just want to wait for the next stop or something, man. And I feel like, I don't know, I want to say especially as a hammer thrower, but honestly, I'm sure everyone probably goes through that, especially if your career is A, past college, and B, longer than 5 years, and however long mine ended up being.
The great thing that again, Scott told me once was, you know, you have all these feelings in the competition and you think you're the only one, and you're not. Every single person is thinking their version of the exact same thing. And so it's whoever deals with those demons the best is who comes out on, who does the best they can.
That is
on the day.
Perfect. Yeah. I like that.
And I think it's, and I expand that to everybody, not just throwers, not just athletes. Everybody is going through life with their demons, and they're all relatively the same.
Yeah. Everyone carries their own thing, right? Yeah. Do you have time? I want to get like a little story time here with
I'm good. Yeah. Otherwise I just got to go weld.
Yeah. Okay.
I gotta go weld.
1996, man. Still to this day, every time I watch that throw, I get goosebumps.
Still to this day, I think about that extra 5 inches.
Yeah. Well, that too. But can you, like, a little bit of, you know, behind the scenes, like set up how training was going, maybe going into the competition, you know, competition, how did that?
And so, and I'll try to, that's really good, because I'll steer it toward the psychological, I think.
Yes.
Well, it's all psychological. I mean, that was the culmination of, I said it before, 5 years of psychological work and spiritual. You know, I say psychological, and by spiritual, I don't mean I went to church and prayed about it. I did, but not everybody does that.
Right.
There's more to it than physical and psychological, and I land on, just because of the way that I think about things, the spiritual part. And you could say it's the human part, you know, or you could say that it's the emotional part. Same thing. So how far back should I go? You want me to go way back? You want me to go way back?
It's all you. So like,
if I can avoid the story of the competition, if we can assume that everybody knows the story of the competition, right?
Okay. Yeah. You could do before and after the whole.
Okay. So 1995 in August in Göteborg, I got 5th. 2 months before that, right after nationals in 95, I came back and I told Stuart, yeah, you know, I'm really tired. So in winter 94, I threw 84.10 in the weight, right? And so, is that right? How'd that work? No, 94, I threw the AR. 95, spring of 95, I threw 84.10 in the weight. So then I went to the World Championships and got 5th. And I went to nationals and I won. And I came back and I said to Stuart, I said, you know, I'm really tired. I just want to train through the summer. I don't want to go to the Worlds. And this guy is unbelievable. He came up with his thing instantly. He didn't even have to think about it. He goes, well, you know, in the gym, there's two kind of fighters. There's two kind of athletes in the boxing gym. There's the sparrers and there's the fighters.
Got it.
So, okay. So I'm going to the Worlds. So I get 5th. I come home. And I think I got 5th. Did I get 5th? Did I get 8th? No, I got 5th. Can't remember. Anyway, on the way home, yeah, I must have got 5th because on the way home in the plane. Now, keep in mind, I'm deaf in this ear, right? Birth defect, remember? No ear canal. So the deafest place for me, the place that I can hear the least, is if I'm driving a car, backseat passenger side, right? So if I'm facing noon, it's like 4 to 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there in the plane coming back from Göteborg thinking, I don't know if I should be pissed. I threw 78, I think. I don't know if I should be frustrated because I could have thrown farther and gotten a better result. Probably could have won because it wasn't like a super long, far competition. Or if I should be really pleased because I wasn't going to go here 2 months ago. So as I was thinking this, somebody behind me said, you're going to win the Olympics. And I looked back, I literally snapped my head back and there's nobody sitting in that seat, in that row behind me. So I held that with me. And then of course, you know, you get the Olympic year boost. You don't get tired in the Olympic year.
No, you don't.
And so I'm going all the way up through and having good meets. Had a horrible trials. And came back and it kind of really shook my confidence. And so I started faltering and it's really bad. And so I'm really embarrassed. Back in the day, I wasn't embarrassed about this, but I'm pretty embarrassed about it now. I was driving up to Stuart's and the Olympic song, right?
Yeah,
it was Higher by Gloria Estefan.
Oh, okay.
And that came on the radio. And it's like, if you can reach higher, if you can do this. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like grabbing my steering wheel. I'm punching the dashboard. I'm going to do it. And so kind of something clicked. And so here I'm a little bit back on track. And so yeah, there was something else there. So back to that. So then, you know, I always I don't know if they still do it, but USA Track and Field had this rule that you had to be at the place 72 hours before. And I was railed against that because neuromuscularly, that's the absolute worst time for jet lag.
Yeah.
And so you either have to go in a week or a week and a half before, but they had no facilities to do that.
No, they don't.
You know, so they gave you an option of going to North Carolina to the training camp. So I went to the training camp. I guess they had a training camp, or I shouldn't be so unfair. They did have a training camp open for like a week. But I don't want to leave. Stuart's not coming to Atlanta. I don't want to, you know, leave training for a week, the end range. Because leading up to it, I was throwing really, really well in practice. And so I went to North Carolina for a night or two, and then I came into Atlanta, and they didn't have a room for me. This is the night before my qualifying round. They didn't have any beds. The way they had set it up was in such a way that people could pick their roommates. And so what they were doing is somebody that had another place to stay outside the village would team up with somebody that was in the village, and they would become roommates, and then the guy would leave.
Yeah.
And so they ran out of rooms. Half the rooms were half full, but because everybody had a single room, they were at midnight. Jim Reardon was the guy, he was the coach, and left-handed discus thrower, and sports psychologist. Great guy.
No,
and he worked really hard to try. And so finally, I mean, they were talking about I could go into the media room and sleep under the table and blah, blah, blah. And so Jim and, I'm going to forget his name, and I'm so sorry about it. He coached at Missouri. Another one of the coaches. I feel horrible. I can see his face. Anyway, they gave me their room. They slept in the lobby. And then the next night we figured out somebody was not going to come in and I was going to share their room. So anyway, so that was a nice thing, a nice little deal on Maslow's hierarchy of needs that I didn't really need to worry about where I was going to sleep. And so I got out and made it through qualifying and made the mistake of, well, there wasn't a mistake. But all this time, I'm still just being super flexible, breathing, doing all the stuff that I did mentally and emotionally to keep myself in this place. Mm-hmm. And had a horrible practice in North Carolina. And I mean, horrible. I couldn't throw 72 meters. And so then I came out in qualifying, and I qualified, and there's a story around that I don't. No, I don't want that. It's not a big deal. Just don't lead qualifying. That's all. There is a jinx about leading qualifying. And then the bomb blew up. Yeah,
that was.
But truthfully, that and I feel horrible about it, but it just didn't bother me. Yeah. I was so isolated and so focused that it was something that happened outside of my world, and the only thing is now my daughter wasn't going to come to the stadium, which was probably better anyway. As it turns out, because then it gave my wife freedom to come around and support me face to face, which was really good. And so so then the competition happened. So and all that time, first round, sector 5. So okay, I gotta to tie it up. I have to go into a little bit of it. So I was 10th in the order. And Weiss and Kiss and Ostapkovich and all these guys that had thrown 80 meters were ahead of me. So I figured there were going to be at least 2 guys over 80 meters when I got in to throw my first throw, and there wasn't. Nobody threw far. I can win this right now. So that was the first mistake. Well, that was really the only mistake. And tried to throw. The plan was throw 78 meters on my first throw and then 83 on my second throw. And I was training well enough to do that. And I tried to throw 80 on my first throw and sector fouled. And then the second throw, I stepped out of the ring for some reason. I don't know why, just to make it more challenging, I guess. And then third throw, tied for 8, thought I was out. No tiebreaker in the Olympics. Got my stuff back on. Hurried my fourth throw because I was hurrying in a hurry. The time was running out. Fifth throw went into 8th place proper, and this whole time, all of this stuff, it's like, oh yeah, okay, oh sector foul, no big deal. I always screw up the first throw. I'm just me. What the hell? Second throw, it only takes 1 throw. I can do this. I got one throw left. It's the only one that's important. It's the one right now. First one throw, only throw. So that worked pretty well, but still not good enough. And so way through warm-ups, I guess I didn't. I don't remember in between. I guess there are no warm-ups. And still working, beating up trash cans on the field, breathing, doing all this stuff. I have I have a roll of tape to keep my hands active, my shoulders down, doing all this stuff, all these strategies that we'd worked out. And I do remember, importantly, that when I did go to put my shoes back on before my fourth throw, after I found out I was still in the competition, I picked my fast ones, because why are you being careful? This is the Olympics. Shut up and go. And so I put on my plastic shoes that were really fast. And then after my fifth throw, I had to break the spell. And so I asked to go to the bathroom and went under the stands and just cleared my head, and came back out in the sunshine. It was dark in there. Came back out in the sunshine, and there's Nancy, my wife, standing right beside the track. And apparently she'd fought her way down there. She'd screamed at a security guard, and said, "That's my husband down there, and I'm going down there." And the whole crowd's cheering, "Yeah, let her go, let her go." Remember, this is the day after the bomb. Yeah. And so came down and to back up 11 years, 1985, I'm in Eugene. It's my second meet here. And I'd met Nancy by then and talking, well, what's a hammer? Well, it's this thing I throw, blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, yeah, I really want to throw 70 meters. And she goes, oh, okay. So I didn't think it meant anything to her. So she's standing there waiting at the meet, watching. And I walk into the ring and she goes, come on, 70 meters. So afterwards, I didn't throw 70 meters that day. Afterwards, we had a conversation. Oh, by the way, you just never talk about distance at track meets. You just don't do it. Oh, I'm sorry. So 11 years later, she's standing there, right? And I hold up one finger. I look at her with what somebody described as my gunslinger face. And I looked at her and I held up one finger. And when she tells the story, she thinks back about 1985. Yeah. And then she's just super excited. She's going, oh, I know what that means. That means one throw, only throw. I know exactly. Yeah, okay. And what I saw was her standing there, and Nancy's pretty pragmatic. And she just stands there and goes, you know how to throw far. Just, that's it.
Nah.
Not, come on, Lance, come on. It's like, you know how to throw far. And so I wait, I do. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do know how to throw far. And then, a couple other little, okay, buddy, I'm talking to the hammer. You're going for a ride. And and it just landed a little bit shorter than Balage's throw. I was really sore the next day, and I mentioned it to Nancy, and she said, "Well, that's what you get for pulling it so far out of the toilet."
See, that's a good woman.
So yeah. So I wish that I hadn't screwed up that first throw. I really do. For about 6 months, I dreamt about that 5 inches a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really proud of all the work that I did, and all of and all the support that I had, that allowed me to weather that storm and come out where I did.
Yeah, that was, well, not that you need me to say it, but something to be proud of. And again, something like looking back on and being part of that Hammer Brotherhood, like,
yeah,
pretty incredible.
Yeah. The other cool thing is in the next meet after the Olympics, the three meets in Europe. The first meet, Balazs Kiss wore a T-shirt that said, if basically, what was it? if at first you don't succeed, you lose. Something like that. Sort of a Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
If you're not first, you're last. And then I beat him 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
Set another American record. So that was, and got ranked number 1 in the world. I like that part too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of that.
That's a good way to finish that story, I think. That's awesome, man. And I know, like, you don't need to get into specifics if you don't want to, but like hearing from, you know, Stuart personally, like how well training was going and going into the games, and sometimes he'd throw his flair in depending on his mood, I guess. And sometimes it was just like, yeah, you know, shit happens and it just kind of is what it is, but it didn't make him any less, you know, proud or any of that kind of thing. So like, I think that's really special, right? Because, you know, sometimes like there are coaches out there that would just legit take it personally. You know what I mean? Your fault. You know what I mean? Like my athlete, you know, didn't qualify for SECs on purpose. You know what I mean? Like, get out of here.
Yeah. No, they gave me a phone. I called him from the press room. And the first thing he says, 4 inches, huh? But you know, we know. Yeah, we were both pretty proud of the whole thing. And
what
he told me in '92 after I threw 81.
Yeah.
And broke through the barrier. We never thought that I'd throw 80 meters. I just wouldn't. It's not possible the way that we trained.
Right.
And so I threw 81. He goes, okay, well now it's time to quit trying to throw far and just throw well. And I think I achieved that. I think I did. Leading up to my last 80-meter throw in Nice in 2000, and I had no right to be throwing that far. And just the kooky old guy stuff that I drew on to be able to go over there and beat those guys at Nice and throw over 80 meters again. That's what I'm most proud of is the fact that I did it for a really long time.
Yeah.
I'm really proud that that I was able to do that.
What do you take away from 96 experience that either you carried into the rest of your career or just, you know, as a man walking about today?
Don't foul your first throw. It's bittersweet. I'm not gonna, you know, blow smoke. I wish that I would have won the gold medal.
Yeah.
I could have. I threw 83 meters the week before, a bunch of times. So I remember thinking, I don't think about it this way a lot now, but I remember thinking then that because of my path, I appreciated the silver medal a whole lot more than Balazs appreciated the gold medal. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't, because he should.
Right.
But he was 23 years old.
Yeah.
What do 23-year-olds know?
Yeah.
And so I think that probably I don't know, I can make stuff up. It probably suits me better. I've always had a real ambivalence toward fame and my place in all of this. I want people to recognize that my accomplishments and my but I also remember coming home after Atlanta and saying to one of my best friends, you know what, this is a bummer, because from now on, I'm going to be known as Lance Steele silver medalist. And that's going to define me in a way, and not in a bad way, in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean, freaking Olympic medalist, shut up. You do it. Yeah. But I'm not going to be Lance Steele anymore. And it was always really important to me not to maintain, it's always important to me to maintain perspective of the overall importance of the stuff that we do. It's really important when we're there, and it's noble, and it teaches people lessons, and at the end of the day, it's ridiculous that I got paid more than my dad, who was a fifth grade school teacher for 30 years. Those are the people that should be the heroes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that, man. That's, as I spoke about natural breaks earlier, that's a pretty good one, right? I mean, like, yeah, have fun, throw far, kick ass, but like at the end of the day, it's just a hammer. You know what I mean? Like, live life, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to say to the people? For me,
oh man, this is so great. I really appreciate. I appreciate your energy in doing this and doing the consortium that you're doing. It amazes me and inspires me that people still care, not about me, but there's still, and I don't know why there wouldn't be, but there's still people that are really, really, really passionate about this, about hammer and about throws, because they're really cool. It's like everything. You get life takes over, and you get focused on other stuff. Right now, what I really want to do is learn how to run a really good downhill bead, a downhill vertical bead, so I think it's important to appreciate. I'm gonna contradict myself now. It's important to appreciate the importance of what if you're throwing, it's important. And the reason that it's most important is because hopefully that's who you are. I've always felt very, very fortunate that for however many years I did it, I was able to be who I am. I was a thrower, and I got to throw, and it was great. And I wasn't anyway.
Yeah.
So it's important to realize that's and you asked earlier if I had any advice for the guys coming up that are throwing far. It's like you gotta live it. If you're not dreaming about it, you're not really doing it. If you're just going to practice and going through the motions, you're not going to do it. It's got to be you. It's got to be all of you, and it's got to be in you and around you, and it's got to be in your sweat. You just have to be that, and that's very, very important. I'm really happy I don't have to be that anymore, because it's really, really hard.
It's draining.
But believe that what you're doing is important, and it does matter. It matters in the general fabric of this world, that people are doing things that are important to them, that and that they do it with all the integrity possible, and they do it with all the good intention possible, and they do it and this sounds weird, but it came into my head, so I'm going to say it, and they do it with love. And what I mean is, you're not doing it out of some twisted counter identity theory. It's just like you're doing this because you're fully committed to it, and you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're doing it in the right way, and that's really, really important these days. That and it's just a trite way is, you got to be true to you got to follow your bliss and be true to yourself, and that's true. And it's
yeah.
I say it funny because everybody says it.
Yeah.
But that's it's important, if you're on this path, to be on the path.
Yeah. Great summation. I find myself kind of wanting to add to it, so just a little bit, talking about essentially like living for it and dreaming it and bleeding it and sweating it, right? And a lot of times I think when the conversation is brought up, so how do you bridge that gap again with that mid to middle-ish 70 meter to 80 and above? In a lot of instances, like that's really the difference. Like there isn't really an answer outside of um living it truly and fully and completely,
Absolutely.
and that's hard. So that's
Well, but with keeping in mind, so if we're living in Lance's world, what that means is that it doesn't mean that you go out and you train 24 hours a day because that's the only place you're your true self. No, you have to be your true self all the time.
right.
And you have to be, and to be a true self and to be healthy in being your true self, you have to pay attention to your relationships and pay attention to your world. And it's not just, it's not immerse yourself. That's the most dangerous thing you can do, is just immerse yourself at the expense of everything else. That's when people get kicked out of the Hammer School.
Yeah.
Is when they weren't improving and they were ruining their life doing it. Stuart would say, "It's time for you to move on, laddie."
Yeah.
And he was right every time. So,
well, this sounds like a part two. Right, because I mean, you spend again another hour and a bit, like just talking about kind of this part of is spirituality, essentially, right? But again, that word means things, but that's part of it.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it to me, and it certainly happened with me, to kind of bring it back to what we were finishing with before I started going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
You have a child.
Yeah.
I have a child. You have two now?
I got two.
Where have I been?
8 and 4, man. It's
cow.
Yeah.
So Stuart said to me after Sarah was born, well, kids are the only good excuse. And so what that does, and I'm not saying everybody go out and have a kid, but what I'm hoping to share, and I know that Kibby, you've said this to me before, is it just changes your whole outlook. And if you can let it help you, and what it did for me was it let me expose my more gentle side, and that's when I became a badass.
Yeah.
Right. And so it gives you this fuller sense of yourself and the world around you, and that's what you need to have to fully get into these other parts of the throw, which I'm really trying hard not to say the next level.
Yeah. Also the next level. I'll say with some of my kids, I just say like level up. Like you just leveled up, right? Because it's, especially when they're really young, like it's clear.
Yeah.
Like it just happens anyway.
Yeah.
Lance, thanks, man. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Until next time, and yeah, man.
All right. Yep. Have fun with those kids.
I'm about to right now. Okay. Take care.